Hello, Andreas.
Hi,
Good.
Andreas.
You're still muted, Andreas.
Let's see.
Hi. Yeah, now
Hi.
it works. I couldn't. I needed superior rights.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Now you have the superior rights.
Yes, I will make good use of them.
Good. That's wonderful.
I try to. Okay.
But
So-
shall we? Actually, I think Thomas would like to say a few words about you before we begin, if you don't mind.
I don't.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
First, Andreas, it's great to see you. It's great that you join us. Thank you for making the time for this global event. For everyone who maybe does not know Andreas Weber, he's a biologist, philosopher, and writer. In his work, Andreas explores ways to understand the cosmos as alive and shared between its participants. He calls this perspective alivement, the principle that we intrinsically understand reality as we are part of its subjective inner experience and share this perspective with others in the flesh. Andreas has written more than a dozen books which have been translated in various languages. His latest works in English are Enlightenment, The Poetics of the Anthropocene, and Sharing Life, Animism as Eco-Political Practice. Sorry about that. And Andreas is currently lecturer at the University of Arts in Berlin. He lives in Berlin and in the Apennine Mountains in northern Italy. And I know Andreas, he's, if I may say so, a deep thinker and a deep practitioner. And I invited you basically because of both, because you have a deep perspective of the enlivenment of reality and the enlivenment that our humanness and our more than humanness in this cosmos is full of. And Elizabeth asked you to guide us through a kind of meditation in this in this hour, this short hour that we have together. And I would like to hand over to you, unless Elizabeth, you want to kind of say something to this.
Sure. Yeah. It's. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to have you, Andreas, and that your work is a place where practice and contemplation are or practice and thinking become one thing. And I know that will be the spirit of what it is that you're doing will be infused in what it is that you bring us to think about.
So in this sense, we would like to hand over to you, Andreas, and please guide us.
Yes, thanks so much for your kind words. And I will actually, I will tell some stories, and as I'm a storyteller basically, and I will also try to share some insights I have had through living through these stories. Maybe insights is too much of a word because it sounds like something fixed. Let's say moments of being touched by the earth, or by life, or by the lives of others. And I will start right here at this place where I'm sitting at my desk in my place in Berlin, in front of the dark night, which you can't see, but I can tell you about it. And there's a yard with trees, and then there is a huge cemetery, and there's the forest, the famous Berlin forest, the Grunewald forest. And in some respect, this is very much feeling a sacred night. And I think it is, like every night, but all the more for what we are acknowledging here. The dawn has closed the day with a a faint pink rim on the horizon. And then silence has englobed us, has englobed me, and the street of this part of Berlin. And we know that the year draws to a close in the Northern Hemisphere. I have seen, when I was with you before in Tjok Hassin's lecture, I've seen that we're mainly from the Northern Hemisphere here, I feel. So I ask others to forgive me my Northern Hemisphere centeredness as I'm talking from my place. And we are all in some sort of lockdown right now, in some various rigidity, severity of lockdown, I assume everybody is. And so this is a very special winter because it is a winter of misery and disease and danger and strangeness. And already winter is the time of dying, of vanishing, of falling into nothingness, as we know. The time when everything becomes dark and silent, and when the life outside stops to stir, apart from dry leaves rustling in the wind, apart from silent birds flying there, drawing their lines into the sky. And we also know from our lives, because we have lived this already quite some times, that nothingness is where everything comes from, where everything prepares, and where life springs from. So we are here right now in this silent, and I might even say invisible gravity center of life, going out and then starting to be rekindled again. And from this point, I want to address the virus itself, coronavirus, this pandemics which has come over us, and seemingly without preparation, but as we all know, we were prepared. We could have been prepared. We know much of what I'm going to say, but we didn't think of it. And I also want to address, oh, sorry, that's it. Sorry, that was one of my many alarms on my phone, because I tend to forget so many things. So we are all reminded of this part, of this aspect of the world right now. I hope there won't be other alarms right now coming, because that's the time. It's normally the time before going to bed. It's like after 10 p.m. when I need to remember some stuff. Yeah, let's come back to what I was saying. So I wanted to address all of you who have actually lost someone through coronavirus, or who have been who have had it, who have been sick, or who are still sick. And I have lost a friend in Italy, in my village, whom I still owe a glass of sparkling wine in the morning. That was our habit, to go from his pharmacy which he had, to the bar at the side of the pharmacy, and to have this very Italian fashion. So I'm owing him this for a while. So I have quite a bit lived through this in my life, through my life reality. I was very close to the virus. I have my ex-wife, the mother of my kids, has been in hospital, and my daughter has needed to quarantine for a couple of for 2 weeks alone in her room, and I was her text message nurse. So I was kind of in this swirl of this, and all the time I had the opportunity to think about what is going on. I was actually in Italy when they closed down the first red zone, and I just got out of the country before they completely shut it down. And then I came to Berlin, and then the lockdown started. And there was this sudden silence, as you might remember. There was this strange silence in the big city, which we didn't really remember, or we had never experienced. And it was somehow apparent that this was something bigger than my imagination. It was something which hadn't been inside my imagination. It came over me from somewhere which was so much bigger of what I had thought and what I have been in, what has been my culture. So I was in a way soothed by this silence, and I was also totally startled because I didn't get what was happening. And I think so. I got into this kind of paralysis. I'm sure some of you might relate. I know that we all have reacted differently, and I have a friend and colleague in the UK who has had a creative frenzy immediately when it started. But I stopped in my tracks and fell silent as the world fell silent, and didn't know what was actually happening. I had the feeling that there was something happening which was not just like the events which you could follow on the news line. There was something happening with the cosmos or with the earth, which became somehow transparent to us humans. And this was so deeply moving, and at the same time left me in this kind of complete unknowing, that the imagination of the earth opened up to me, waiting to be heard, waiting to be seen, but without any advice and without any preaching or without any nudging, you ought to, you should. It was just there. And so I was Theo Kassin, you might have heard him before, 2 lectures before, said, you can't outsmart the earth. You can be as intelligent as you want to, but you can't outsmart it. And in a way, it was a sort of this big breath of the whole of the living planet, which I felt for the first time, maybe, which I felt as something which was not my life experience, but which was a sort of experience of the whole of life. And I was there, and I was just listening, and I didn't really manage to work. I was somehow transfixed on the news, as many people were, but then I was also just looking around, and I was thinking, what is going on? And I couldn't get it. I couldn't really get it. I know there were some colleagues, some thinkers and writers who very quickly had an idea and had ideas and wrote articles and made their voice to be heard. But I actually had thoughts, like you can imagine, like, okay, I'm somehow this is about life, and I'm a life expert, and I'm also a writer and a journalist and a philosopher. So I should need to say something about it, actually, but I couldn't. I kind of was dumb in a way. I wasn't able. I didn't get what was going on, and all the while we were living our small lives in small circles, and going out only walking the dog. I had the forest. That was a very important thing. So I was actually doing very, very well. And then somehow it dawned upon me that what we were doing by having this restriction of our lives in order to protect other humans, in order to protect the community of humans, all humans, we were enacting a gesture of reciprocity. We were, maybe for the first time in my life, as a society or as a community, acting with the idea of the other first. I need to restrict my radius, what I'm doing, in order to not endanger others or not endanger the social whole. Also not endanger me, but the idea was very much about the consequences of my behavior to others. And so I was thinking, okay, so what we are actually doing, and we're not doing this with in ecstasy and joy and bliss. We're suffering through this in a way, and with suffering through this because we also know that. So we also had this continuous feeling of misery, and I was looking at the news from Italy, and I talked to my friends, and I really had the feeling that this was a sort of bad trip. So this was really bad, and so it wasn't only. So it was truly suffering through this, and through this, we were so much. We were enacting something which we hadn't done as individuals in society before. You know, our busy lives in capitalist society is about realizing stuff for our individual goals, for our individual fulfillment. And now suddenly we were acting in the name of reciprocity, and we were doing it. We were really doing it. It wasn't like intellectuals like me writing books and preaching to others, telling them they should be more reciprocal in their behavior. The other first, please. We were just doing it, and that was the moment when I thought, okay, so that's the message. The message is what we are doing, and now we only need to understand what we are doing. And we are doing what we need to do, actually, only that we restricted it to humans. So it was reciprocity among humans. That's what we did. But the whole thing, the whole situation is about reciprocity. And this is, so this was also the moment when I had the feeling that I was actually moved very much. It was a sweet feeling to understand this, that the intelligence of the earth is never going to us and reprimanding us with words. Like, it's never judging. It's never preaching. It's never ordering. It's never, okay, you're a bad person. You need to behave otherwise. This never happens. It never happens. But what happens is that if I don't behave in the way I need to behave, which is needed from me, then I, at some place, in some point, at some point in time, I will change my behavior, just purely and simply. And I was so moved by this gentleness of showing us what is needed to do, that I was moved, and I was thinking that this needs to be explored by us. This really needs to be heard, and it still really needs to be heard. I remember I was sitting in this room. Actually, I was sitting. You can see the painting on the rear wall, and I was sitting under this painting and looking out of the window. There's another window which was open. It was in April, a little bit later, still locked down, on a sunny afternoon, and I was writing, or trying to write, maybe I should say. And the window was open because there was a sort of early spring sun shining into the room, and a bumblebee came in. The first bumblebee. They're very early, as you know. They're very early when there are nearly no flowers. The bumblebee queens are up from the earth, and they are looking for holes to build their nest. And it came into my room and flew some rounds in my room, and woke me up to life with the sound of its wings, with that deep sonorous sound. And it's actually, I heard this bumblebee and I was thinking, yes, it's just like this. It's the sound of a bumblebee. It's just what needs to happen, which is happening, and which then reminds me of how this world, of how this living world is bringing forth itself all the time. So in a way, this gentle message that what we really need, what we really want to have, is reciprocity, can be seen as a gift. So this virus, which is so extremely depressing, and which actually we really so much long to finally get behind us. Let's make it a thing of the past. I mean, everybody feels like having the life back, the social life back, which we had before. And still, this virus is a gift. Like all of the earth, which always is only given. Like the bumblebee which came into my room and gave me the joy of the new beginning. Like it will come back into my room, or probably rather, as bumblebee queens die after they have started their nest at some time in spring. It will be one of their offspring finding the way through the window into my sunlit room and reminding me that everything ends and everything starts from this dark, silent, invisible middle. And so everything is always a gift starting from this nothingness. And it can only thrive if it's granted other gifts, if it's given, if it's meeting reciprocity. And so I think it's overwhelming, actually, this message, but it's difficult to get. It's difficult to not confuse the message, and not to confuse also what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that coronavirus, COVID-19, is a good thing, because it's a terrible thing to many people, to us all, because we are so estranged from so many lively, good, fruitful, normal human things. But life isn't always without pain. To the contrary, we know this. So it's a thing of being born and a thing of letting go or giving away. And both are gifts. And both make this bow of reciprocity. And so I think it is really important that we see the gift of this message in the middle of the virus, and that we give something back to it. That we get this message, and then we have to give something. We are needed to give something back. That's the second part. But I want to dwell on this first part again, because I then, after the first wave of people commenting on coronavirus, there was a second wave of people, of intellectuals, stressing that the virus shows us that we shouldn't so much cling to our little lives. Let us learn to die, it was. And I remember I really had some discussions with some friends and colleagues, because I've written so much about death that people came and said, hey, come on, this should be like kind of your part of your thinking. And I was saying, no, it's about people dying, and this is always terrible. So that's not what we need to get from it. Don't need to get from it that we should just you should easier let go of your life. This is something you can never preach to anyone. Nobody can decide who shall live or die. So that is not the message. It was interesting. It was really there were many in voicing this kind of trying to welcome dying, because we know that death is part of life, and we know that our civilization is so transfixed in chasing death away and cultivating eternal youth. So it was sort of seducing to think that that's the message we should take away from it. But I don't think so. I think if we start to tell others how they should relate to their death, then there's precisely again that human arrogance, that Western arrogance, which in this technocratic way always knows how things go and how things should be done and how the best life should be led. And what is happening, how the cosmos is moving, is never about telling anybody how to behave or what to do. It's moving by just being. And this being results from the need to give and from the need to be given back in order to continue. It's the logic of the gift which we are confronted with. So it was something much, much simpler. The message was much, much simpler, and it was much more benign. It wasn't about, hey, come on, let go of your ego-protective capitalistic lifestyle and embrace dying. It was much simpler. It was just showing that what we fundamentally want to do in order to protect the community of life is to give reciprocity. We want to give reciprocity in order to protect life. It's something which comes from us. It's not even something which we need to be taught in order to finally learn this. It's something we do. If we see that the situation is endangering the community of life, then we give this reciprocity. Only that for humans in our societies, the community of life is restricted to the community of humans, as you know, because biology, ecology has done a lot over the last 200 years to push other life into the realm of objects, and that's a grave error, and it's actually also remedied. This error is corrected by the coronavirus, because we see that the virus, which supposedly is an object, is also an actor. It's an agent changing the world. It's an agent changing cultures. It's even a political actor. If you see all the political reactions around the way to react to the pandemic, you see it's a highly political actor. So in the message of the virus is on so many fronts deeply about the flaws of our worldview and of the view of ourselves. But it doesn't reprimand us. We don't get bad marks. We're not blamed, named and shamed. That doesn't happen. It's just life going on in front of us and with us, and we can decide if we go with this life or if we resist going with this life. And as I'm talking about this this idea, the classical mainstream idea, okay, this virus is a biological species, but at the same time, as we know, biological species are kind of objects or things. We also can make it worthwhile to look a little bit more into the ecological situation of this. And then you'll see, I'll do this for some minutes, you'll see that, again, it's about reciprocity. So you know that the virus is here because humans are encroaching on other beings in remote places, in remote forests. And the simple equation is that these viruses have hosts, which are other species, very often bats, because bats are such an old group. They have old viruses, and they live in these species without any problems. They don't make them sick. And if the space becomes scarce for this species, if the individuals die, if they are sold on markets, this virus just needs to carry on, and it jumps into another species, and that's humans in this case. And you see, the virus occurs in the human domain because of a lack of reciprocity. That's why we have the virus. It's our lack of reciprocity to other beings which pushes the virus into our world. I'd really look at the ecological disaster as a breakdown of reciprocity. So what is this else? Humans taking away everything and everywhere. What is this else than a breakdown of reciprocity? So the virus it's not a natural disaster. It's not a public health catastrophe. It's all this, but it is ecological suffering. And it is ecological suffering because of not returning the gift of life. So you could put it like this. You could put this reciprocity, the exchange of reciprocity, as this. And as this virus is already our own suffering, it is that lack of reciprocity is a deep suffering of all participants in this renunciation, in this denial of a gift. And now this suffering has become a form. It has got a form, and we suffer with it. So it's a deep ecological logic in this. And we also see that we are unable to extract ourselves from this. So it's something which we cannot circumvent. It's like, like an overdue change in your lives. You all know this. You all had overdue changes in your lives, and you waited, and because they were painful, you knew they were painful. And you all know that they happen nonetheless. So if there's a change needed, it will happen in some form of another. It will just make its way, because it has already occurred when you feel the need to make the gesture of a change. You're already somebody else. And this is the logic of life also in ecology. So reciprocity will happen. It will happen, and it will happen without us. It will always come through. like birth will always come through after death, which is to me a really, really consoling. It's not an idea. It's a certainty. It's the foundational principle that nothingness bursts with life. It can't but give life, and this life can't but give itself. And if it is not given back in order to be fecund, it will continue to give itself, and it will give what needs to be given, and then it will cause great suffering. This gift will cause great suffering, because life can't do anything else but to proceed towards the desire of reciprocity. And in a deep sense, this is an idea. It's an idea for us, for our season of the year, because we have this certainty that we will die and then we will live again. Individually, it's very risky to just let it roll like this, and not to engage in honoring the reciprocity which is needed with your deeds and with your attitude, and not waiting to be consumed by the inevitability of reciprocity. Tiokasin, you see, he's inspiring me a lot, and I have heard 2 talks of him, and they have really in the last days, and they have left deep inspiration. And he has said another very important thing. He has said, "The earth does not lie," and I think that that's what I'm trying to say here. The earth does not pretend. The earth is, and in just being what it is the biggest imaginable gift. In just being what it is, and in just needing what it needs, and in just giving what it needs to give, it is the biggest imaginable offering. And this is something we might take away for our individual lives as well, that which is will always come through. And in being helpful to that which is and that which we are always giving a gift. And I'd say from my biographical experience, it's true. It's hard, but it's true. It's the gift of truth. It's the gift of really being there. I need to see, look on I was thinking that 45 minutes were longer, but that's the error I'm always making. It's always the mistake. Let me for the final 5 minutes, let me invite you to a little journey inside yourself. So you see, it's what I'm trying to say is that which is not you, and that what is on a first-hand encounter, even the experience of being menaced by something else, is just asking to receive the gift of yourself, handing yourself over to this other for the reason to fill you with life again. And if we feel into ourselves, if we observe ourselves, if we look into ourselves, we see that what the virus does, the total other, the total stranger, which yearns for reciprocity, that's also the principle which animates us. That which we are not gives us life. So how could we then not choose reciprocity? Bear with me in this little excursion into yourself in the last minutes in the face of what we are not and what gives us life. So, for example, if you feel yourself as body right now, if you pay attention to yourself, you know that your body is composed of billions, dozens of billions of tinier bodies, your cells, and every cell has the information of the DNA, and 1/5 of this DNA of your cells comes from viruses. 1/5 of our genome is from viruses. So our ancestors, our biological ancestors, have been infected like bats are and lived with these viruses so intimately that the viruses has become them. Isn't that fascinating? We are made of viruses, 1/5 of ourselves. So the stranger, the attacker, is ourself. Or feel the liquid between your cells, which is also called the inner ocean because of its salt composition. So that is the ocean in your body. Or feel your bones made from calcium, made from rock, actually, from sedimentary rock. So that's also the inanimate world is you. So you are the rock. The rock is you. We carry it around all the time. The rock, which to us seems so different, so it's so unmovable, it's so hard, it doesn't talk to us, it seems that it has no desires, and then still it is us. Or think of the kind gaze of another person who has confirmed our smile and welcomed us into being, and who was necessary to help ourselves to develop an identity, somebody else, another person. Or think of the bacteria in our guts and in our skin who have 10 times the genetic information which we have. All this is the other in me. All this is already something which is beyond my grasp. It's totally unfathomable, and still gives me my life. So in the end, this moment of stillness and of stopping in my tracks, which I remember from last March, is nothing else than the moment of realizing that this demand of reciprocity and the respect of reciprocity is actually what gives life to myself all the time, in every moment. And in a way, then, this silent watching of our reaction to the pandemic is nothing else than bearing witness to being alive in its most acute and evident lived way. Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll stop with this, and I'm very proud that I more or less observed the time. Thanks so much for bearing with me.
Thank you for bearing witness to the virus with us, making us aware of its demand of reciprocity. And it's not even a demand, it's just beingness as reciprocity, as the gift of life, asking us to be in that that contained loop of life, that life-giving life. Thank you for that. And thank you also for reminding us of that we are made of virus, that it's not an absolute other. Yeah, and that our bodies are part of are just of this earth and of the life forms on earth. Thank you for that.
Maybe it's good also to take a deep breath with what Andreas brought to us. I'm still with the 25% of viruses in me, I have to say.
In our DNA.
In DNA, I had no idea, and it does something to me. And it's just the image that you evoked in me is 25%, and then this one virus comes out of an ecological reason, and we treat it as something other. And to see how this is very much related to how we treat the non-human life and how the relationship or non-relationship that we have developed in this.
And that way that we treat other life or other beings or entities as other, how that has created the context for this virus to be looking for a new host.
I guess we should go with this into the break.
Yeah. So
I would ask everyone to also stay with what Andreas brought and bring it into your meditation. Bring it into your presencing. Just no necessity to do anything with it. Just stay with it, as we say all day today. Bear witness. Bear witness also to the virus in us, and we with the virus.
Yeah.
And
yeah, what you were saying about be with it in presence, not in content, not in mental activity or engaging or thinking about it, but allow whatever hit you and what Andreas said, whatever you took from it, to just have space in your being. And we'll be back at the top of the hour. And I would recommend when we come back that you shift to gallery view so that we can all be together in meditation.
One last thing. I just got a request, Andreas, because you only have your first name, and people were asking what's your second name so that they can Google your books. Andreas is Andreas Weber.
Weber. Weber to those of us who speak English.
And you find, when you go on our website, you also find his full name, and you also find some of his English books. So if you're interested in his books, just go on One World Bearing Witness and go to the place where we have Andreas Weber, and you also find some of his books. Thank you for the question. Here is his name.